So people during the Metallica set were somewhat pissed off, I think, about it. Everybody started ripping off these cushions, tossing them like a Frisbee. So we probably have 75,000 people in the stadium with thousands upon thousands of these Frisbees.
Projectiles.
Throwing down on the people in the pit. All right, cool. We're here with a special episode number 2. The metal episode is what I called the last one, so I guess I'll call this the next metal episode. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm here with my buddy, part deux. What are we at, Jean-Claude Van Damme? Part deux. So I'm here with Jeff Petty, my buddy Jeff Petty. We're going to kick off the episode with T-shirt talk. So why do we go with Maiden today?
All right. This is Maiden.
Okay.
2017 Book of Souls tour.
Okay.
What makes it awesome is that it's kind of Texas themed.
Oh, yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
shotgun.
So they do it, and then like he's wearing like a Texas DPS, and it's Eddie, of course, which if you're a metal fan, you know
let's
who
talk
Eddie
about
is.
Eddie, because I'm not a huge Iron Maiden fan, but I know who Eddie is, but people are listening, I'm probably, if anybody's listening to this, they already know,
will.
But who's Eddie?
So Eddie is basically Iron Maiden's mascot, for lack of a better word. So he's been around since album 1. If you look through all the Maiden albums, all the way from Killers up to the one I just released, Senjutsu, they do some variant of Eddie. So they've done Deep Space Eddie. They've done Scary Eddie. They've done King Tut Eddie. They've done, and then like the shirts, they do like cool variations. So like immediately, you don't even have to have an Iron Maiden sticker.
You just have to have Eddie.
If you have Eddie, everybody knows who you're talking about.
What's describing Eddie? So he's obviously a zombified looking skeleton guy. He has some sinew and flesh on him. I mean, because it's metal, right?
And in this one, he's wearing pants.
He's wearing pants, but like, do you know what the origins of Eddie? Why they picked him and called him Eddie, or anything
that's
like
a good question. I don't know, but what's really funny is if you go see Maiden in concert, they bring out like a 25-foot Eddie. Onto the stage for like certain songs.
So like animatronic?
Yes,
like,
and it feels very Spinal Tap when you're
was Spinal Tap based on Maiden? Or is that
I think Spinal Tap was a conglomeration of a lot of those bands.
Yeah.
But like, it's the whole Stonehenge, right? We said 6 feet, it was 6 inches, so they hired shorter people to be around it. We'll use shorter people.
Shorter people, like let's be politically
shorter
correct.
people,
because I'm on the shorter end of the
so
spectrum.
as not to offend. Yeah.
So you went with Maiden, and you said like Book of Souls tour though. So for people who don't know, you said they'll put out an album, they'll do a tour like it's dedicated to that album, and then the next year they do like, hey, all of our greatest hits.
What they call is a legacy tour.
Okay.
So they'll do tour on an album, legacy tour, back and forth.
And is the Book of Souls legacy, or is it Book of Souls?
Book of Souls is Book of Souls. So it was a new album tour, but you still got to see them play all, the Trooper.
They're probably playing? Are they playing like 3 hours? Like how long is
2.5?
2.5.
Yeah, God. And actually on this particular show, Ghost opened up for them.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm not a big Ghost fan.
I would say.
I was kind of meh on it, but live they were great.
Yeah.
Like that's the one thing that's nice about like this genre, right? Is like people put on an album and it's too clean. And then you see them live, and the guitars are a little crunchier, and the sound's a little heavier, and you got a little bit more adrenaline running. And I was like, not bad. But Ghost came out, did their thing. They're terrifying. Then Maiden came out, and it's a bunch of 60-some-year-old guys.
I was gonna say, like when you get in your 60s, I know like our favorite band, Tool, those guys are getting in their 50s.
Sneaking there, yeah.
Like, how do you stay metal when you're in your 60s, right? Like, can you still perform? Metallica,
they're all 60.
That's wild, dude.
I mean, I can't imagine like if you're Lars, like doing the double drum kick thing.
Yeah.
Forget it. Or Hetfield. But now Hetfield, his nickname now is Papa Het.
I didn't know that. No, okay.
So, and as we both know, we're going to go see Metallica in August.
Literally 9 months from now.
It's going to be fantastic. Yeah. But Hetfield is like the king of like, it's like dad jokes in between songs. So it's a little like, you're kind of like, this doesn't reconcile with the Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets Hetfield. Yeah. But he's 60.
He's 60. He might even be a grandpa. Is he a grandpa, or is he?
He might be. I know one of his kids has a band.
Okay.
Bastardane. And then Lars's kid has a band that I just discovered that kind of sound very White Stripesy.
Okay.
Not bad.
Huh.
I'll have to send it to you.
We have passing on metal and generation to generation.
Corey Taylor's son has a band. Slipknot. His son sounds just like him.
What is the name of that band? You know?
I'll look it up. They're not great.
See, this is why we need that TV, Nathan. We'd be like, Nathan, can you pull up who the band is that Corey Taylor's son plays for?
No, but it's one of those, like all these guys are like going next gen. with their like metal
Cool,
kids.
man. I mean, it's the same thing like
Yeah.
athlete dads that have athlete kids, you know, and the kid sometimes is better than the dad, sometimes
right.
not as good as the dad,
Right,
but you know.
exactly.
Yeah, and so anyway, so like the
So
people
yeah,
are
sorry,
listening-
we got totally sidetracked.
So Maiden shirt,
Yes.
totally dig it. And I presume there'd be Maiden represented at some point on this podcast.
Of course, yes.
I picked Knock Loose for two reasons. One, I think might mutually be one of our
rule.
favorite bands at the same
Yeah,
time.
yes.
Two, it's the only other band shirt I have.
I know.
So
we had that conversation.
I gotta get some. Well, and I shout out to I have the guy that got me into stop loss insurance, Peter Travis. He had me pick him up a Tool shirt whenever we went to that concert.
Oh yeah.
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 I still haven't gotten to him, and it's like an extra large. It's literally hanging in my closet as a reminder. I need to give, but it's an extra large. Peter's a big dude, and
right.
so maybe no. It's like a 2 or 3X.
It better be.
He's a massive guy.
Now it better be because I bought a Tool shirt whenever we went. I wear larges.
Okay.
Like I usually wear large shirts. I bought an XL because concert tees are always right. It's an XL. It is extremely snug.
Okay. Well, he told me, he's like, hey, I think he was even like, if they have a 2XL, get me a 2XL.
Go as big as you can.
Pete's a big guy.
He's a
but
big fella.
That
Yeah.
reminds me, I need to get him his damn shirt.
Yes, exactly.
Otherwise, that's the only other shirt I would have worn.
Because the last time we did this, you did the Rivers of Nile shirt.
Yes.
Now you got the Knock Loose shirt.
And so what I came within like clicking a button. That band that I recently sent you a song, Kardashev. You know,
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I just like this one. I think it was Snow something. I can't remember the name of the song. And I wanted to bring them up today. Maybe a good time to bring them up. Have you seen that they call their genre of music death gaze, Gaze, like shoegaze?
What?
But they call it death gaze.
So they've come up with their own deal.
Yeah, or whether people did or they came up with their own genre, but they even have album. Or,
So what does that mean?
Band, like, you know what shoegaze is? Have you
Yeah,
heard of
yeah,
shoegaze?
yeah.
So I think it's the fact that they have this, you know, if you listen to that one song or any of the other songs, like they'll go on these ambient sort of like journeys of kind of like sonic, what would you call that?
Like soundscapes.
Soundscapes, yeah. And then bring it back into like insanely heavy,
Okay.
screeching black metal vocals, death
Okay.
metal vocals. So death gaze
I'd be totally into
is a
that.
combination of death metal and shoegaze. Boom, Kardashev.
Okay, I'm gonna have to.
So like because of that, I'm like, hey, they got their own genre, and nobody sounds
Trendsetters.
like them, and they have really cool like their aesthetic is cool.
That's
so,
awesome.
So maybe the next episode we do
Okay.
all have a Kardashev.
Okay.
shirt.
Yeah, we might have to do like a obscure genres.
Yeah.
That nobody really listens to and who's in them.
Who's in them?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's only like 500.
Yeah,
genres
exactly.
of-
And I
of
mean,
metal.
you just taught me something with Death Gaze.
Death
I had
Gaze.
no idea. I mean, that's
Plus,
actually
it sounds
that's
really
actually a cool band name.
It is. No, it is. It's definitely would be a cool band name.
Yeah.
So we were gonna kick the show off. I think obviously the shirts, but
Yes, of course.
what'd you listen to on the way here? Because I think that's a fun conversation.
So-
to prep for
Yes.
the podcast.
So obviously coming to talk metal, I went Pantera.
Okay.
So and it was Use My Third Arm, Great Southern Trendkill, just heavy, loud, thrashy, crazy riffs, Phil going nuts. And then whenever I got out of the car, it was Hatebreed, Seven Enemies.
Okay.
Which is, if you've listened to the lyrics of that, which I cannot repeat on this pod, but
I
if
don't
that
know.
doesn't get you amped, like it's got the lyric, I wish I would try.
Ah.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about now. Now that you said the lyric, I know that song for sure.
Yeah, you know, Hatebreed, they do one song really, really well, and they've done it over like 9 albums.
Yeah, no, they're pretty much the same.
Yeah,
song. Like-
yeah. So how
Okay, so
about
you went Pantera, Hatebreed,
and I did a little bit of Slayer,
a little bit of Slayer.
a little South of Heaven, which I, old school repping for like 86.
Now you brought Slayer up a lot last time in conversation. We talked Slayer a lot. Are they almost a daily listen, or are they a nostalgic listen for something like this? Like
more,
how often?
more nostalgic.
Okay.
They have one album, Seasons in the Abyss, that I'll listen to at least weekly. That's one of
Really?
my go-to. Yes, it's got War Ensemble. It's got the song Seasons in the Abyss, Dead Skin Mask, all these like crazy, and it's a little less heavy and thrashy.
Okay.
Actually, as I'm putting together and I still owe you my thrash metal list.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that.
There's going to be songs from that album, and you'll be like, "This is Slayer."
Really
Like
Okay.
it's got a little bit more groove to it. So that, but like the older stuff, like the South of Heaven and Rain and Blood and all that, I got to be in a particular mood for.
What is that mood though? What would be the mood?
Like getting fired up to come to a podcast, working out.
Okay. Yeah.
Working out. I love listening to Slayer when I work out.
Yeah.
But like working at work and having that on the background, not so good.
Yeah, that's it. And then we talked about last time. I think you're getting prepared to listen to metal. I have to have 1 to 2 cups of coffee in my head before I'm okay with
You
listening.
did say that.
Yeah.
That's right.
And sometimes I'll listen to it on the way to work, and sometimes even on the way to work, I'm like, you know what? I can't do this today. Like
Too much.
I didn't sleep that great. Bashes up at 2 in the morning. Like I don't think I can do metal just yet.
Yeah,
you
right.
know?
Yeah. Well, your
But-
kids are younger, so it takes a little bit longer to
But,
wind
and we'll
up.
get to this later too. I think kind of the workout heavy metal playlist.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But that's really where I confess I work out almost pretty
too.
much every day.
Same.
So like every day for about an hour, I have heavy metal on my headphones. So when we were going through the Spotify Wrapped and things like that, and I discovered I was in the top 0.5% of
Awesome.
Fit for an Autopsy's listeners, and I listened to one song 98 times. That's why, because it was on the same playlist over and over again. But that's what I listen to every time I work out. And so if daily for an hour I'm listening to metal, you go through a lot of heavy metal.
Heck yeah, you do.
Yeah,
Heck yeah, you do.
7
Well, I'm
hours
the
a
same
week.
way. I'm the same way because I probably work out 5, maybe 6 days a week. I usually, like, today's a day off.
Okay.
But yeah, it's all metal. If you looked at the list, you'd be like, okay, yeah, the guy's.
But then I went through my Spotify Wrapped. I think I posted it the other day. Everybody, you know, it's almost cliche to do your Spotify Wrapped now, but it was Fit for an Autopsy, Knocked Loose, Kids Bop, of course, because my daughter is 5. Kids Bop was number 3. Number 4 was a band called Active Child, which is like a weird pop band that has harps and synthesizers. And you're like, what? Are you sure somebody didn't hijack your Spotify?
Sure.
And then number 5 was Tool, of course, obviously.
I had Tool in my top 5.
You had Tool in your top 5?
Yeah, I think my top 5 were Sasquatch, which we'll get to in my list, which I can't get enough of these guys. Cracks up band name, but a great band. My top 5 were that, Metallica, most listened to, Sasquatch, Metallica, Deftones, Alice in Chains, and there was one other, and I can't remember who it was, but it was a lot of like 90s metal.
Yeah, no, and it's funny, like Deftones is one of those bands that like I love and I appreciate. And Around the Fur and their first album, Adrenaline, they're probably all-time top 10 maybe or top 20
easily.
for me.
Yeah, me too.
But I can't tell you the last time I actually listened to Deftones, which is
I
weird.
saw them in concert, I think it was in 22 or was it 21? All these COVID years have run.
I know, right? Like
that's why we delineated it on our list, which we're getting to. But
Yeah.
but it's like I just saw. No, it was this year.
You did?
I just saw them
Because they were
there was Gojira.
Yeah, that's why I
and
remember
Deftones.
that.
It destroyed. It was incredible.
Oh, man.
Incredible.
Chino, is he still sounding
Shout
good?
out. Oh, sounds fantastic.
Okay, awesome, man.
I mean, the guy, and he's like my age. Like he's closer to me than he is to you age-wise.
Okay, I believe, yeah.
Yeah. So, and he's like, and it's funny because like he's just like this chubby dude now that's just up there, but his voice sounds silky.
Oh.
Actually, well, I got to get to my list and then I can mention my Chino reference. So
Okay, all right. Well,
I'm gonna keep a lid on that
we'll
for a
hold that
second.
for later. So what I listened to, just to round out that question, what I listened to on the way here, I told you there's 2 things I listened to. Blood Eagle by Periphery, which I don't even like Periphery that
you like
much.
the song Blood Eagle.
But that song Blood Eagle is insane. It's probably got one of the heaviest riffs I've ever heard. When I started my heaviest metal of the universe album or playlist on Spotify as an homage to Gojira's heaviest what of the universe, heaviest something. Of
I know, yeah.
God, now it's escaped
I wish
my
was
brain.
here. I could ask him. Yeah.
But it's that was like the second song I put on that that playlist. And then the other one, just shout out to for people that know, my mom passed a couple weeks ago, and so I was like, what did she like? She liked Prong. And I remember bringing up Prong to you, and you're like, dude, I like Prong.
Yeah.
So back in 98 or something like that, I found the song "Snap Your Fingers, Snap Your Neck," which is one of the silliest.
Oh, it's the best though. Come on.
Brenda Smith,
Crunchy
mom,
riff
on a cassette tape in her minivan, or green Dodge Chrysler minivan on the way to soccer. She'd be like, "Hey, play that Snap Your Fingers."
That's
song.
fantastic.
And she liked it, and she would like do a little like mom groove. So shout out to mom. I listened to Snap Your Fingers on the way here. So anyway, so let's get into some of the fun stuff with some pre-planned questions we got into. I'll leave it up to you. Is where do we go next, man? I've got some written down, but where do you want to go from here?
I mean, we
got a while. We got an hour,
we
man.
got
So we got plenty of time. Yeah.
Do we just want to go right into the albums?
Let's do it. Yeah, that's we've been doing a bunch of build up
because we've been talking about this for like ever, right? So do we want to start with the 22s or do we want to start with the COVID?
Well, see, I even told you, dude, I was like, I couldn't narrow it down to 22, so I just went my top 5 of COVID.
Okay.
So you start since you got more.
All right. So I'm going to do just 22. I'm going to start with 22 and then we'll do COVID.
So top 5 albums of 2022.
Just this year.
Okay.
Okay. So number 1, Zeal and Ardor.
Okay. Yeah.
That's my favorite. That was actually my top listened to album on my Apple Music, Spotify Wrap, or whatever you want to call it. That album, well, we talked about it, right? All the thematically, we're not super big fans.
Thematically, I didn't love some of the,
super big fans. It's got 12 songs and none of them sound the same.
Okay.
Like, one song sounds almost 9 Inch Nailsy. One song sounds almost like Old South, kind of sing-songy.
Oh, yeah.
The next one is like Rip Your Head Off metal. They have a song on there that I can't pronounce. It's like Gadadarum or Gadadarum. Heavy as all get out. And the guy has a great scream. So
he does, yeah.
That's my number 1 album.
I am a fan of the first Zeal and Ardor album they released. I go, what is this? Like,
Brilliant.
it was, it was genre breaking. You know what I mean?
Very much so.
Okay, so I guess I have to. I'll set aside.
Take another lap.
The
Yeah,
devilish
move.
themes.
You can't understand what he's saying anyway.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll give it a listen. Then.
So
All
that was
right.
absolutely.
So Zeal and Ardor is your number 5, I guess.
Yes,
if
and
we're counting down.
we'll say in no particular order.
Okay, fair enough.
So Zeal and Ardor. Next one, Lamb of God, Omens. I mean, it came out this year, at front to back, rock solid, right? Like Omens was one of my most listened to songs. Great riff, right? I mean, Lamb of God's sound is Randy Blythe. Enough said.
Well, actually, I liked Omens better than their previous record, which I can't even name for you what the record was before.
Oh, I've got it on here.
You got it on.
It's on my
sorry,
COVID
well,
list.
it's on your COVID list. Okay, well then I'll keep my mouth shut because I didn't listen to it that much. But go ahead.
All right, so that's 2. So then the next one, and I've already talked about him, Sasquatch. Album called Fever Fantasy.
Well,
so these guys,
I was gonna say, so they're kind of niche.
Stoner metal.
Oh, stoner metal. Okay.
Stoner metal.
Yeah.
3 guys, stoner metal. Riffs are not intricate.
They're just
They don't play fast.
slow. Yeah.
They're just riffy.
Okay.
And actually, Fever Fantasy came out in 22, which is fantastic. It has songs like Witch, It Lies Beyond. It's great. Their older stuff is really good too. They're stoner metal. So it's just, the guy's a cool voice. They're nice heavy riffs, crunchy.
But
And they've slowly become like
because
one of
their
my
name's
favorite
Sasquatch. Is it kind of tongue in cheek
hard to
metal?
take 'em
Like, are
serious.
they? Can
No.
you take them serious? No, they're legitimately.
No, they're
like,
legit.
Okay.
Like they're doing it's not like songs about Bigfoot. Like they are literally.
The entire album is just a Bigfoot.
It's a Bigfoot homage.
yeah.
But I think I actually did some research and they were saying like they wanted their sound big like Sasquatch.
Okay. Well, that reminds me, and I think I sent you this band just on the subject. All Hail the Yeti, which is they're really good too. But their name is All Hail the Yeti, which, like, how do you even take yourself? Maybe you
Which
don't
Yeti?
take yourself serious.
The real Yeti or like the cups?
The Yeti. I don't. All hail the tumblers.
Hail the tumblers.
But I think they're almost in. I think I maybe sent you a song. I can't really compare them to Sasquatch because I can't think of their sound.
Yeah.
But I feel like those guys would be on the same set or the same tour, probably.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you some Sasquatch jams. I think you'll dig it.
Okay, all right.
Because it's not, you can understand every word he says.
Yeah.
The riffs are just, they're very kind of, you'd almost like Caius.
Yeah.
Like they're in that stoner metal,
Okay.
right? So I've done Lamb of God, Zeal and Ardor, Sasquatch. Now, the next one for 22, which is just a fun one, Dream Widow.
I have no idea who that is.
Foo Fighters.
Oh, yeah?
Dave Grohl's band, Dave Grohl, Foo Fighters. They put out a movie this year, Studio 666.
Okay.
Super campy horror movie, right?
Yeah.
Ridiculous. But as a result of doing that, they put together a side band called Dream Widow. It's all Dave Grohl. It is pure thrash.
Okay.
It's pure thrash.
And are you a Dave Grohl fan in general?
Okay. I love Dave Grohl. I love the Foos. I love Nirvana, the whole thing. But there's this, and I'll send it to you too. I'll send this to you as well. If we had a TV, we could play it.
Yeah.
It is so good because it sounds straight out of like 1988.
And is it the soundtrack to the movie itself?
Yes.
Okay.
And they have a song. They have songs on there that are like in Latin, like because it's kind of like that old school like kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's like like one's called like Lacrimonious, and it's like this big long opus. But that album is good. It's rock solid. I'm not kidding. It sounds stupid, but it's a rock solid album.
I'll take your word for it.
It's a rock solid album. Okay. And then last but not least, for 2022. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I can't say that because I've got more than 5.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna rip through these because
you said you did 5, but you actually come up with 8, right?
I can talk about the next one will be Upon a Burning Body.
Yeah,
Fury.
you told me you got into those guys
Because of Edgar, because of my
Edgar.
business partner. He loves them. I love them. They're nice and heavy. They're from Texas.
Yeah.
They have a song they have an album actually called Southern Hostility, I think.
Okay.
That's brilliant, right?
Yeah.
That's like a Pantera thing. So we'll go ahead. So that.
And they're kind of Pantera-y, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're that big, heavy sound. Now, the one album, so now we'll get into the honorable mentions. And I'm gonna leave one off because I have a feeling this will come up on your list.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
for
leave
sure.
one off.
Yeah.
But the one that there's 2. Sorry. We were talking about Chino earlier.
Mm-hmm.
There's a band called Polyphia.
Yeah, I don't know how you say it. Polyphia.
I don't either.
Polyphia,
I think they're from Plano.
Yeah, you told me that. Yeah.
They do a song with Chino on their most recent album. It's
Yes.
a 22 album. The album itself, it's hit or miss. Mm-hmm. The song with Chino, rock solid.
It is, yeah. And I've always envisioned those guys as being like, even if you look at that young kid that's got like throat tattoos and he's real skinny, just absolute savant on
Off
the
the
whole
charts.
band are savants.
And actually, what kind of got me into them was you and I going to see Lamb of God and Animals as Leaders opened up.
Oh yeah.
I started looking up animals as leaders, and then like all my social media feeds changed into, well, if you like that, then you'll like this. And these guys came up, and that Chino song came up, and I was like, this thing's dope.
Well, no, they are. And if you go back in their catalog, I mean, you look at them and go, these guys probably like metal, but none of the songs that they actually write are really metal per se.
Rappy kind of
yeah,
stuff.
they have a groove. All of them, even though they do these amazingly intricate sounds, and you understand music better than I do, that it's so complicated.
Oh my gosh.
But it always has a groove too.
Yes.
You can nod your head to it.
Very much so.
I think they even had on that latest album, they had some pop singers and stuff.
Very much,
some collaborations, but the Chino collaboration was awesome.
Sick.
Yeah, it was
Sick.
definitely awesome.
All right, and last but not least, just for 22, and then we can get off my 22 list and start talking all COVID.
Okay.
Greg Puciato. He's the lead singer of Dillinger Escape Plan.
Yes.
Put out an album called Mirror Cell.
Mirror Cell. Don't even know that one.
It is brilliant.
Really?
Yeah. And it's
Mirror, like CELL cell?
CELL.
Okay,
Yeah. I typed it out. I'm looking at my notes. So it's heavy. Okay. He's got a great voice, right? He has a song on there that's almost pop metal with the guitarist girl from Code Orange.
Oh, cool.
And she's got a great voice.
Yep.
And it's just he had put out an album before this called Absence is a Presence that was okay.
Okay.
Kind of found his groove on this one. I'm telling, maybe I haven't sent that one to you, but I need to, because it is just a good rock album.
Well, I've never heard of that, but he's done a couple other collaborations. Something Feathers.
He's got a few different ones,
Yeah.
and he's going to come up on some other lists
Is
here
he?
later.
Okay,
yeah,
so Greg Puciato.
but Greg Puciato, and he actually just finished touring with Jerry Cantrell.
No kidding.
And he basically was doing the Lane Staley parts of all the Alice in Chains songs.
Dude,
And
what
saw
an
him
honor,
live at
man.
House of Blues.
Yeah.
And saw him do it, and took me about 3 songs to realize who it was. And then I'm like, oh, snap, that's the Dillinger guy.
Okay.
And if you've listened to Dillinger, which I know you have, it's like you would think, how is this guy, how are they the same person?
Well, isn't that funny? Like you perceive certain metal, like let's say a medical vocalist has a style within the framework of a band that is only heavy. It's either only screams or only growls. You don't realize they probably can sing.
Chops.
But they don't do that because it doesn't fit that particular band.
Right.
So that's interesting, though. So he's a really good singer.
Oh,
then.
my gosh.
I mean, he has to be if he's doing the Lane Staley.
Brilliant voice. He,
Okay.
like, when they did Wood, forget it. You were just like, okay, this sounds like Lane Staley.
Well, that's interesting. This people filling in for a band, a really big band at a concert is going to come up later with me.
Okay,
So,
right on.
so save that thought.
Right on.
So I'll do
So
my
now
top.
I'm done with my 22, so now I want to hear yours. Yeah.
So I'll do my top 5 COVID eras because I couldn't really narrow. I didn't think 2022 had enough just in 2022 that I felt was worthy of a top 5 for me.
Fair enough.
So what I did was your suggestion. Let's do COVID era because they all kind of blend together. And quite frankly, I can't tell you which one came out in 21 or 20 or 22 anyway. So all right. So here's a band that I don't know if you'll know, but they're called Vola. VOLA. So Vola, they released an album called Witness. So I did do in descending order, so they're my number 5 on the top 5 list.
Okay.
So the best way to describe them, especially go back in their catalog, is meshuggah, but with softer vocals and a little bit more prog style elements. They had keyboards, they had singable choruses, but the syncopation and the rhythm structure is very meshuggah-esque. I think they're even from Djent.
Yeah.
They're from Sweden and Denmark too, which I think meshuggah is like somewhere.
They're somewhere in there.
Yeah. So Vola, VOLA, probably one of the best bands to emerge in the last 5 years, for sure. They have 3 albums since then.
That's a ringing stamp.
Dude, they're awesome. If you like that style, they get in some prog.
Okay.
The choruses will stick in your head. They have a softer vocal style than meshuggah.
Well, and I was going to say, because that's the one thing that keeps me from listening. Like meshuggah, you can only listen to for about 20 minutes, or at least I can, like 20, 25 minutes at a time.
Yes.
Because
usually it's like 2 or 3 songs, and I'm like, nah.
But if you put a little bit more vocal behind it.
Well, and so like I like.
I love the music.
A palate cleanser, right? So like every once in a while, it'll be a super soft song. Mm-hmm. Meshuggah doesn't do that. Meshuggah
they do
just
not.
hammers you for an hour.
They bludgeon
you. Like, please stop. So Vola. Uncle. So that's my number 5, Vola. The album was Witness. Number 4 is Gojira, Fortitude. Which, okay, so let me caveat this. I love Gojira.
Yes.
Fortitude was good.
Yes.
Good to great. Do I listen to it a ton? No.
Okay.
But I think in their collective list of albums, it might be number 3 or 2 on
Top
their
third.
list. Yeah, top third. And it's Gojira, and there's quite a few songs on it that are fantastic.
rippers, yeah.
So I'd say Fortitude, Gojira, and I think that probably came out in 21, if I'm not
I think
mistaken.
it did because, and as a footnote to your Gojira comment, Edgar, who we talk about a
He's a
lot, who
huge fan,
eventually
right?
we will get out here.
Like,
for
I
this.
think next one we do
Yes,
with Edgar.
I was joking with him yesterday. I was like, "We're doing top albums. You should be here," but it didn't work out. But anyway, he is of the same opinion as you with the most recent Gojira.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "It's really, really good. It's not their best, but it's in the top tier."
Well, it's funny, and not to sidetrack it, but I love the album Magma, which is the one prior to it, I believe, or 2 albums before.
It had to be 2 albums ago because the last one I know was not as well received.
Yeah, well, maybe Magma wasn't the one that was well received. I can't remember, but like it's kind of like when Metallica did the Black Album, and it sort of like polarized
like, do you
their
dig
fan
it or do
base.
you don't? Yeah.
Gojira, it polarized their fan base, but that's the one I got into the most.
Oh, right on.
So I was
Okay.
same with Black Album. That's when I got into Metallica the most. So that kind of gives you an idea of my sensibilities.
Sure.
So number 3, Boundaries, which it's called Your Receding Warmth.
The one with the black with the red on the cover.
Yes,
That album
rips,
rips.
dude.
Yes.
Okay.
That album rips.
And they have
Sorry.
oh God, my favorite song. I saw them recently at a hole in the wall in Dallas.
did, that's right.
And you couldn't go, and I was like,
couldn't
Jeff, you want to
go,
go? And you
that's
couldn't
right.
go. But it was funny because they didn't play the song I came to see, and I'm like, dude, it's like literally your top song. Everybody's
that
here
album
to see
is
this.
great.
But
You turned me on to it. I dig that album.
When it was one of those things like, it's hardcore, but they would throw a breakdown 30 seconds into a song. You're like, whoa, like you usually save that for a little later.
Yes.
But it's so heavy, it's so good.
You were texting me videos from that night.
And then, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And then the next album they released this year, I'm like, oh, that sucked.
Not great.
Like, huge letdown.
Not great.
Yeah. So that was my number 3.
Yeah.
Number 2, you already know these next 2 albums, but I'll go. Oh, I couldn't decide between 2 and 1, but I did have to make a choice.
Okay. Fair enough.
Fit for an Autopsy is number 2. Oh, What the Future Holds.
Great album.
So that is the band that I was 0.5%
Great album.
top global listeners.
Great album. Yes.
It is amazing.
Yes.
It is an amazing album. And we went to go see Lamb of God recently.
And I
but
couldn't make it for
you
Fit for
couldn't
an
make it.
Autopsy, and you were there.
Yeah,
Yes.
so they opened, and they were good. They were really, really good. I would like
And
to
he
see
came out
them
with the
more-
Lamb of God. He came out.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
What song did he do?
It was right at the end. See, Walk With Me in Hell? No.
Yes, wasn't it?
Might have been.
It was Walk With Me in Hell. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like, I think his name's like Joe something, but he did.
Oh, it was Walk With Me
Yeah,
in Hell.
yeah.
Yep.
Walk With Me in Hell. And so then, of course, Shirt I'm Wearing, Knock Loose, No Surprise, A Tear in the Fabric of Life, Owe It to You. You definitely turned me on to this band. I think that's a 2021 release. If
It
I'm not
is. It is. I
mistaken.
put the dates on mine, so it was October
Oh,
of
you
21.
came way more well.
Oh yeah,
prepared
no,
than I did.
it's on paper and everything.
Yeah, you're like, I had a
Kidding me?
spreadsheet. and
I
all
had a
this and-
spreadsheet. There's algorithms that I applied. No,
Yeah.
but I've been waiting. As we
I have
both,
no doubt it's going to show up on your list.
I mean, it's number 1.
Well, and I think you and I, let's go ahead and like no foreshadowing, might be our favorite album of recent memory, both of us. Like,
It's my. We were talking about this earlier. I think it's literally my favorite album of the last 3 to 5 years.
yeah, I am going to go. I'm going to
25-minute album. It's an EP. It's not even an album. 5 songs. 5? Yeah, 5.
Is it
5 with like one instrumental?
one? Yeah,
so like,
yeah, one.
So
nice
like,
short,
so
1
like
minute
4
song.
songs.
Yep, yep.
Brilliant. The sound, the crunch to it,
Yeah.
the we always quote the like all the it's just it is so good, and it kind of brings to me that album brought us to, because we were having this conversation earlier.
It really was like when we connected over metal.
Oh, 100%.
When you told me about the album and told me about the lyrics and told me
Epiphany.
about the motif,
Epiphany.
and you were like, I was like, oh. I was like, Jeff's got good taste too. And I'm like, he helped. You need metal buddies. We talked about this last time. You need metal buddies that bring you into genres you're not quite into.
100%.
That educate you,
Yes.
on. And you gave me the courage, not even courage, but the suggestion, hey, dude, there's way more to this album than you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
Check it out.
Yes.
And I'm glad you did.
And the footnote to this band, and we talked about the last time we did a podcast, and it's like it continues to be, and it will be one of my favorite stories of all time. We go see these guys live over in Fort Worth, little teeny venue.
Yeah.
Opening bands we could give 2 flips about. The night before Mother's Day.
Yes.
Is when we went to this show. So we're going to a club show in Fort Worth, which is an hour away.
Where we're like 20 to 30 years older than everybody.
Well, you're 20, I was
Okay,
30.
yeah.
And it's kind of an old school metal, like an old school thrash show.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like dudes jumping off the stage. There's a hardcore pit. You and I are back in the back with our cocktails,
Way
chilling.
back. Yeah.
Right. Bought our shirt, kind of like, all right on. But it was, and we stood up for 4 hours. We got in the car. Our backs hurt.
Yeah.
Like, old man.
Well, I leaned on a rail to help me with that. They had
Me and
that
you
rail
both.
there. I'm
Me
like,
and you
this
both.
is going to help.
But even seeing them live even made me bigger fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're like, first off, I mean, like the singer's an acquired taste, as we've talked about.
Yep.
He's got a higher register to his voice. You gotta kind of warm up to that because, like, as we were talking about earlier, I'd been listening to them a couple albums before, and was lukewarm on them.
Yep.
And then "Tearing the Fabric of Life" comes out, and my head exploded.
Well, and I remember when it came out, and I had listened to that, and Still I Wander South. I had a couple songs that got me into
From
it. I'm
the
like,
Blue
those guys are
album.
pretty good.
Yeah.
But it was at the point, when you get into a band and you can't quite remember their name, and like, they'll pop up every once in a while.
Absolutely.
And then, the Tearing the Fabric came out. It was suggested on my release radar. God Knows, I think, was on it. I'm like, whoa, that slams. But, again, vocalist, I'm like, I don't like it's okay. And I didn't really come back to it for months until you're urging about looking into the lyrics. And it's a weird, we were talking about this weird dichotomy. It's like beautifully tragic story.
Yeah.
Extremely heavy metal.
Yes.
Put those two things together. They don't sound like they should work, but they absolutely do to the nth degree.
Oh my gosh. It's a perfect album.
Yeah.
I mean, metal bands, it's kind of, how many bands do you say like front to back, I love that album?
Very few.
Very few. And I think what's happened, and it's interesting because this is COVID era that we're talking about. A lot of bands, and bands I dig, like have moved to EP formats. They put out 5, 6 songs, or they'll put out 2. Like Zeal and Ardor just put out 2 songs.
Just popped on my radar on Friday. Yeah.
Hey, here's 2.
Yeah.
So the Knocked Loose album comes out, and it's like, oh, it's an EP. Yeah, I'll give it a run. It's 25 minutes. I wish it was 125 minutes.
I do. Yeah.
I mean, because it just everything flows into the next, everything. And but it's funny, like you and I sit here and we profess our undying love for Knocked Loose. Edgar can't
stand it.
Doesn't buy it.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't get by the guy's voice.
Well, there's almost something cool about liking a band
That nobody else
that
does.
not anybody else does. But I think, quite frankly, a lot of people like Knock Loose, but it's Sasquatch. Shout out to Sasquatch. But anyways, we could call this like Knocked Loose episode 2 because we talk about them.
Oh, I could talk about it for 2 hours.
I know I could.
Easily.
And that's why I wish that Rivers of Nihil Where Owls Know My Name album was 18. I was like, I wish that was more recent. It would have been on my list as well.
Yeah.
I could literally talk about those guys forever as well.
they're
But
your
what
jam.
sucks though is like, what does Knock Loose do next? Will their next album come anywhere near, or will we both be disappointed then when the next one comes out?
I bet you will be disappointed because Tearing the Fabric is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a classic in this genre. Most people will be like, no, classic is like Stairway to Heaven. We're like, no, it's Knocked Loose, Tearing the Fabric of Life. I don't know how you get better. Now, unless, because they're young kids, and
those
if you're
guys are
like,
still young,
I
right?
think Tearing the Fabric is only like their 3rd album.
Okay.
Because I think it was Dead Ringer, Different Shade of Blue, and Tearing the Fabric. So maybe they're just finding their thing. Because it's not going to be a concept album. It's not Queensryche Operation Mindcrime.
Yeah.
So the next album's got to be more disjointed and
Like just an album.
just an album.
Yeah.
But if they keep that same edge, because I don't know what they did. I think they might have made a deal with the devil because that album is that good.
Well, we both rave about it so much that people are probably like tired of
They're like,
us talking
"Shut
about it.
up."
But like, if anybody has skepticism or has even listened to them once, if you leave here and listen to Knock Loose, A Tear in the Fabric of Life for 30 seconds, just listen to it for 30 seconds. We'll get past the first minute, which is filler until it
which
gets
is
into
filler.
the song.
Once I'm
but-
driving in the car.
Yeah, it's them driving in the car. But I think we could dedicate an episode literally to that album, and maybe we will, just as
I think we might have to.
the
Just
5-year
break it down.
anniversary or
Just
something.
break it
Like
down.
just break it down song by song.
All right, I'll say that this is the last comment
We'll
from me.
move on after this,
Last
yeah.
comment from me about Knocked Loose, and then
Yeah.
you feel free to, do whatever you're going to do.
Yeah.
What's brilliant about it is like that opening thing, the first minute, is because I went down the Knocked Loose, Tear the Fabric of Life rabbit hole. All of those little clips that they play that he's thumbing through the radio were like opening songs from their tours.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like you hear like Leanne Rimes in there and you hear like the Beach Boys on. They used to come out before they would come out on stage. Those were the songs that were like their pre-music.
No kidding. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that.
I didn't either until like I said, I went down the Knocked Loose rabbit hole.
Okay, and I got to say one more thing about that album.
Go.
The ASMR, like when she's in the wall, the whisper, the end of that song. I had it cranked up one time with my headphones and didn't know it was coming.
Terrifying.
Chills. Literally chill. I'm like, what was that? It's like the ghost of his, dead girlfriend. And I'm like, but they do it in such a subtle way that you don't know it's there. Yeah. But if you have it really loud with headphones in, it's that whisper where it almost like makes you uncomfortable, like ASMR, whatever you call that.
Yes.
And that freaked me out the first time I heard it.
So it's funny you're saying this. And this is how weird I am. So whenever I sleep on planes, put on music, noise cancel, and done. I put on that album. Didn't think I was going to fall asleep. Just listening to it and fell asleep to it and woke up to that. I was like, who is this?
I played that for my wife at the gym one time. I'm like, all right, baby, you just have to last a minute of this insanity. I want you to hear this. And it makes my wife so stressed out. I can see on her face how terrible like the music is to her.
She's like, I love you.
She's like, I love you. I'm worried about you.
I worry about you.
Yeah.
There's
but like
you can
making her listen to a minute and a half of like heavy metal, it like I think her heart rate probably went through the roof, or like adrenaline's pumping, and she's just trying to get to it. And after she listened to it, she's like, okay. Like,
so I give you a lot of credit for even trying.
I tried.
God bless you. Yeah. So, because my wife, like, she's an 80s metal girl.
Hair metal?
Hair metal.
Okay.
Right? So she likes now, I say she will tolerate.
Yes. Totally different thing.
Listening to that. But once you pull it to like, hey, do you want to listen? Like, she hears the music I listen to and she's just like, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Like you listen to the weirdest music ever. I'm like, this to me is every bit as good as pop music.
Well, so I've resigned myself to the fact she will never listen to it, and so I don't try to make her. Other than I was like, you got to check this out. It's so amazing. Yeah. But it's like that's why you and I, can bond, because it's that's like you find your people, you find your other weirdos in the world that listen to the crazy music. So I got to let you get to your list though. So COVID era list.
So obviously Knocked Loose we've covered. Loose, that's number one, far and away. Number two, Every Time I Die, Radical, came out literally a week before
they broke up, right?
Yes. So that album comes out the week before Tearing the Fabric of Life.
Okay.
Every Time I Die is the reason I found out about Knocked Loose, because Keith Buckley, who was the singer of Every Time I Die, tweeted about Knocked Loose 5 years ago because they were an opener for them. And he's like, check out this band. And that's when I downloaded Dead Ringer.
Okay.
And was like, man, this guy's voice is wearing me out. But anyway, so shout out to Every Time I Die for even telling me who these guys were. I might have discovered them at some point, but...
Yeah, you never know, man. Yeah.
But you never know. Yeah. So Every Time I Die, who, obviously most anybody who knows me, if I had a favorite band that's not a traditional old school Metallica, Pantera kind of thing, it's Every Time I Die.
It's Every Time I Die. Okay.
And then there's two brothers, singer and the guitarist. The singer turned into a ginormous weirdo in the last year, and they broke up. Dang. So this was their last album. They didn't even tour it.
They didn't tour it at all. Like they didn't play live.
No.
Well, so what do you think will happen? Because I did read an article, I think a week or two ago. It's like most of the guys are getting together and maybe doing an album on another band.
With a different singer.
Yeah, with a different singer. But then Keith Buckley might be doing his own thing as well, right?
But I don't know that he'll do the heavy stuff. I'm not convinced. I think he strikes me as he has a little bit of LSS, lead singer syndrome. Like I think he's gonna try to go a different lane. I think those other guys are going to stay. I think it's going to sound exactly like Every Time. It's going to sound like Van Halen, but with Sammy Hagar. You know what I mean? Like, I think they're going to, and I follow all those guys on socials, so I know they're working on it.
Well, it's kind of like Sepultura without Max Cavalera. Is it really Sepultura anymore? No, I don't think it is either.
No, it's totally not.
And then Soulfly, but anyways.
Yeah, so that album is like one of those, like, kind of bums me out to talk about because I love the album.
Okay.
But then they're like, done.
Well, every band's got to end eventually, right? Or they just tour till they're 70 years old.
or you become, the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
So third, obviously, so twice today, Lamb of God.
Yep.
And that album was actually called Lamb of God.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yes. Okay. Now, I'm not going to talk about the whole album because it's great. It is good. It has a song on there, Resurrection Man, which they did live whenever we saw them.
This is the one that you told me was your favorite song, right?
It is. It might be. It has a lyric in it, which I actually, as
you
can see, I typed it out.
You did type it up.
It says, I was born in a cemetery. I learned to walk on skulls and broken bones. I mean, come on.
Well,
there is nothing more metal than that lyric.
Randy Blythe amazing lyrics.
Quintessential metalist.
Like he writes
metalist. I think I just made a
metalist.
word.
Yeah, he writes incredible lyrics. Like not silly. I mean, he has like really interesting.
Yeah.
You can tell he's well read.
Yes.
So, anyways, all right. So
that album to me, like that album makes the list based on that song.
Okay. I'll give it to you. That's fine.
The album is great, but that song is brilliant.
Okay.
The other album from COVID era, Code Orange, Underneath.
Yes, Code Orange is legit.
Code Orange, they're one of those bands I started kind of listening to, and they bring in a lot of different elements, and this is what I dig about them. Kind of industrial, kind of metal, female lead guitarist who just shreds, which is kind of cool to see women kind of jump into the genre, right?
Yeah.
And she's the one I referenced earlier with the Greg Puciato album that does a song with him. But the thing that makes them so great, so that's their third album. They have 2 albums before that. They have one called I Am King and one called Forever. The Forever album,
one I really like. Yeah.
that has the opening with like the talking.
Yeah.
So great, but Code Orange, Underneath, the song Swallowing the Rabbit Hole.
Yes, I know that song.
Brilliant. And what's really cool, like kind of the footnote about Code Orange, their singer was their drummer. So the first 2 albums, he's literally Don Henley from the Eagles. He's drumming and singing. And then they're like, well, hey, dude, like you're going to be our front man. So we're going to find a drummer, but you're our front man. Right after they put out this album, COVID starts. They do a COVID concert and put out the album around it. So their album is really kind of industrial sounding, right? It's got a lot of like that all that stuff. They did a live album where they just played a COVID show, stripped down. Awesome. So good. They did songs acoustically. That's whenever I realized, I'm like, okay, these guys are next level.
Yeah, because they're young, aren't they? Really young.
Kids.
Yeah, they're kids.
I mean, they're probably the same age as my oldest son. Like, but that's whenever I really established a whole new respect where I was like, okay, these albums are good and they're produced and they're that, but you guys put on a show during COVID. I watched it, of course, because I'm that guy. Yeah. You know, like, oh, Code Orange is on so you want to watch? Like, we're talking to my wife. She's like, what's wrong with you?
No, go in your man cave and watch, put on your headphones and do it by yourself. Yeah.
So, live album is great. So, that's fantastic. And then I'm going to do 5A and 5B.
Okay, that's fair.
5A is a band called Dying Wish.
I know the female's lead singer.
Female lead singer. Yeah. So I've actually got women reps on 2 of these. They put an album, Fragments of a Bitter Memory, put out in 2021. Love that album. And she's the singer, and she can thrash with the best of them.
She rips too. Like her vocals are amazing.
Rips.
Yeah.
The music is great. Her voice is great. And then of course, as you do with any band, right? You find that's the first album I'd seen from them. Then I backtrack.
Yep.
Find out they've had like 3 or 4 albums. And she's been the singer on all of them, and they're all pretty darn good. So that's fantastic. And then the last one, last but not least, Killer Be Killed. Yes. Where am I from? Killer Be Killed, 2020. So it's Greg Puciato.
That's okay. That was the band I was trying to think of.
Yes.
Killer
Troy
Be Killed.
Sanders from Mastodon.
Okay.
And Max from Sepultura.
Oh.
They have 2 albums. I knew that. Okay. They have 2 albums. The second one was Reluctant Hero in 2020.
Okay.
I had actually, this is a shout out to Edgar, because I had left it off my list, forgot it came out in COVID.
Okay.
And then he's like, dude, how are you leaving Killer Be Killed off your list? So what's so great.
I like how Edgar audited your list.
He did.
He's like, wait a second, before you put this out there, let me check it.
I pre-authorized him. I'm like, all right, buddy.
Tell me where
I'm missing. But the thing that's so great, they've put out 2 albums. The Puciato songs sound like him, like a little bit more whatever. Troy Sanders, they sound like Mastodon. Max's song sounds like Max. You know, and so it's crazy because like, and then even after finishing this list and finishing 2020, 21, 22, like there's albums all the time, like Sepultura's album. Totem is a great album. I left off Megadeth's album, which was not great. But I mean, it's one of those where it's like there were other albums, but these were the top of the.
Well, I'd say like if I had to stick to 2022, I would have put Omens on there.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And I love Lamb of God, but I would have put that on there just as like out of 2022.
It's freaking Lamb of God.
It's freaking Lamb of God. Yeah. But if you go look at my my Spotify Wrapped, there's very few albums that came out in 2022 that I got into significantly, which is weird. Yeah.
So I have a theory on this.
Okay. What's that?
COVID starts, and all these bands now go. They've nothing to do, right? They can't tour, they can't anything, so they go to work on albums. But I think a lot of these bands lost their edge by not touring. So then they just were like, well, let's put out an album. So it's hard. I mean, like we just talked about between you and I, between 2022, the COVID list I have and the COVID list you have, I think Knocked Loose and maybe like Fit for an Autopsy crossover. So you're talking 13 albums out of 3 years.
Yeah. It's not a lot.
I mean, that you're like, that's a butt kicker.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a lot of really bad albums.
Well, see, that flies in the face. I had this theory. At the onset of COVID.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times hard times or really, difficult times create great art.
Absolutely.
I'm like, there's going to be some great music that comes out of it.
Yep.
I think the best music is coming out right now. I'm starting to hear of bands I've never heard of before that are like, oh, those guys are really good. My release radar, usually it's like, oh, you got 25 songs, I like 2. Now it's like 8 to 10 of those songs. So maybe the algorithm's getting better or the frequency of great music is coming out.
And I think it's because people have been able to get back out on the road in the last year.
Maybe you're right.
Because I do think it's like anything. I think this is like a tool. Iron sharpens iron. Mm-hmm. So if you're out and you're like, you always hear bands talk about like, yeah, we were on tour and that's when we wrote half of blah, blah, blah album.
Yeah.
Because they're in the groove. And I think a lot of these guys went home during COVID, just like the rest of us. And it was almost like stretching like an old man. Yeah. Like, all right, let's go work on that album. So like Lamb of God is the only exception where they were a legacy band. They were able to put out not only 1, but 2 really good albums.
Yeah. Okay. So
during 20 and 22.
Okay.
So they are 100% the exception to the rule. But
I'll be interested to see. So 2023,
I think
do we get a renaissance? Like, do we get a renaissance of music? Like, and maybe that's we were going to have this question.
Yeah.
Who are you most looking forward to releasing an album? Like, we don't necessarily know they will, but if you had your druthers.
Well, there is one we know will, and I cannot wait is Metallica.
Okay, yeah, I know. And you sent me that song, and I'm like, oh.
And they are bringing the pain on that first song.
I'm so like, because
they're not really your jam.
Nah, not anymore. Yeah. There's a Black album. I liked Injustice for All. I went back in the catalog a little bit, but I wouldn't say I'm a huge.
Well, you're not a thrash guy. Let's start there.
Yeah.
Let's start there. So, the three of the best albums of all time from that genre are Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, and Master of Puppets. Mm-hmm. Okay,
I'll give you that. Yeah.
Then they do Justice. Then they do Black Album. They have an album coming out I think it's coming out in April. They're doing the big tour, which we're going to see, that has the Mighty Ones, Pantera on it. It's going to be fantastic. That first song they put out sounds so much like a 1985 Merciful Fate song that you're just like, oh, I'm in. Like for me?
Yeah, I know you're in.
For me, I'm like, done. Sign me up.
Yeah.
Like I sent it the second I got it. I'm like, and like, you're like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I was like, I don't like it. I literally said, I'm sorry, dude. I don't like it. But so on the subject, right, do we think we'll get a Pantera album? I mean, will it be Pantera? Will they legally be able to be called Pantera with an album? I guess they're touring it.
Well, I think they've gotten the blessing from Vinny and Dime's estates.
Okay.
But, I mean, I don't know that I would call it Pantera. I'd be like, it's Pantera-ish.
I mean, it does have Phil and Salmo. So
has Rex.
Yeah, so like they'll sound like Pantera. Zach Wilde, he's a pretty awesome guitarist. And who's doing the drums?
Charlie Benanti from Anthrax.
Okay. So like it's got some street cred.
And they all have. So like Anthrax, like Benanti, like so Anthrax considered Dimebag their 5th member.
Okay.
He's on some of their albums. Zach Wilde and Dimebag were best friends. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of inherent connections in there.
Sure, they didn't just hire some random really good guitarist.
Not gun for hire and go do it. They did something with some emotion.
But like when you look out, I don't know if you noticed, Pantera is booked out to August of 2024.
I know.
That suggests to me there's a reason why they're tuning up. I think we're going to get an album. And if I had to speculate.
Well, and I go back to what we were just talking about, which is as bands tour, that's whenever like they're in sound check, right? They play a riff and they're like, oh, that's gnarly. Okay, let's explore that.
One thing about Phil and Rex too, they go, oh, this feels like home, right? Like, cause Phil's done his thing. He's done all these other bands.
Down.
I love Down. But like, he's going to get on stage and they've already been on stage a few times. He's going to go, this is it. this is like, this feels great. Like, I feel like we're going to get an album.
If we get an album from Pantera, I might have a heart attack because they are my favorite band.
I know that. And I told you I had a Pantera sticker on my
car.
Which is
so killer.
I mean, like,
yeah.
It's funny. I was at the gym the other day and I saw a young kid with a Pantera shirt on. He was like 16. I'm like, I gave him a fist bump. I'm like, yes,
absolutely,
dude.
buddy.
Like, good for you.
Yeah.
So, like, my hope is I think we might get a Mudvayne album this year. They're suggesting, like, they even said they're either back in the studio, they're back touring or something.
Yeah,
like
because they've done kind of the festival thing a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's always been this rumor of, like, because it's been, I think, a decade since they've released something that everybody wants them to get back together.
And talk about a band, we were talking about, that's a band that I totally didn't get on board with when they came out.
Other than Dig, I was like, Dig was a cool song, but
they're weirdos, right?
With the masks and the makeup and stuff. Yeah.
But that 5.0 album or whatever, the
LD 50.
Yeah. Holy crap. I just found that should have been one of my best of a 22.
Yeah.
Because I just discovered it.
Well, and I think one of the very first songs I ever put on a playlist with the sole purpose of lifting weights was Determined. Do you know, it's like 1, 2, 3.
I know exactly what you're talking
about. And it's like, because it's like literally just like getting you ready to go work out. Like, that's literally the reason I listened to it. And that pulled me back into Mudvayne. So I think we'll get a Mudvayne. I hope. Let's say I hope we get a Mudvayne.
So right now, Metallica, Pantera hopefully. Mudvayne, hopefully.
Do we get a Knock Loose album?
Maybe,
right? Because 2021 was when A Tear in the Fabric came out, I believe.
Great point. Yeah. And they're the kind of band that needs to put out material.
Yeah.
I mean, those bands that are on the come up, and they definitely are. They're one of those, like, we saw them on a headlining small venue thing. To take that next step, now they got to go out on tour with like a Lamb of God.
Yeah.
Go out with like a Code Orange, or somebody in that, like, they need to go out with that established big band,
the huge band, right? That goes. They're the guys that they're the feature act right before the big band.
Yes.
Because they need to be introduced and
broaden the lens.
Broaden the landscape. Yeah. And there's probably like 15 other bands I could list to you, but like, these are kind of the people that I feel like we're going to get an album from this year that I would be excited about.
I'll throw one out there that you tell me what you think.
Okay.
Tool. They've toured the last couple of years.
They did say they have enough material for another album.
They remade the Opiate song, right? Which, I mean, it was unnecessary, but it was kind of cool to hear. Different. They're kind of getting older.
Yep.
Do they really want to keep
still doing
touring?
his thing with Pussifer. He's still, I think 2 or 3 years ago, we got a Perfect Circle.
Yes.
Okay, and then we did get a Tool album pre-COVID, so 2019?
Somewhere in there.
20? I can't remember.
I actually saw them. Well, we saw them. It was January of 20.
Yeah, okay. So, I would say that because all the legal issues are behind them, because they said they wrote so much material that they could have a second album.
They'll speed the wheel a little bit.
They also did suggest that it wasn't their last. I guess you're probably right.
Either next year or like 2037. It'll be one of the two.
Who knows? So let's get, I know we've got probably 20 minutes left before we get, I feel like we always run out of time, dude. Okay, so, all right. Concerts. We've kind of touched on favorite concerts, but I think that'd be a really fun your highlights of your whole life.
You go first.
Okay. All right. So this story, I was actually preparing this ahead of time because it might be my all-time favorite concert. So we mentioned Metallica.
Yes.
Wasn't a huge fan. I did see them, I think either in the late 90s or early 2000s at the old Cowboy Stadium.
Ooh.
So old Jerry Jones World, Cowboy Stadium. Metallica, I believe Kid Rock, Korn, Corrosions of Conformity were on this bill. Weird bill.
So what year do you think this is?
If I had to speculate, I want to say it was right around 2000, 99, 2000.
Fair enough. Okay.
So the crazy thing and why I tell the story, there's 2 reasons. One, James Hetfield hurt his back, didn't sing that concert.
Oh.
They announced it at the concert. We're so sorry, James Hetfield cannot perform tonight. Okay?
And they're headliners.
Obviously. But they go, but Jonathan Davis, Pepper Keenan, Kid Rock are going to fill in, sing Metallica songs.
That would be awesome.
So, yes, it was awesome because you're like, what would it sound like if somebody else sang the song?
That would be awesome.
So we got that. The second thing, which I think is the bigger reason why it's my most memorable moment, the old Cowboy Stadium had those traditional seats where there are those plastic seats you fold down and you sit like a baseball game. On top of the seat was a cushion, a thin little plastic with foam in the middle cushion. So people during the Metallica set were somewhat pissed off, I think, about it. everybody started ripping off these cushions, tossing them like a frisbee. So we probably have 75,000 people in the stadium with thousands upon thousands of these frisbees,
projectiles,
throwing down on the people in the pit. And it's just like this, it's almost like it's raining these seat cushions.
Yeah, because they were probably playing in the round, I would imagine.
No, they weren't in the round. They were on one end.
Okay.
But they had the pit, and then you had the bowl,
and then
the horseshoe shape, and everybody's just like, and those things would fly, dude. They had some weight to them. It wasn't like a paper airplane.
They had enough girth.
Those things would fly. So I remember after that concert, there being this announcement that Jerry Jones would like never host a Metallica concert ever again.
And yet we're seeing him next year. At
Yeah,
Jerry
yeah. Well, so he obviously changed his tune, but that stadium's been imploded. All those things. What was really cool about that too, just icing on the cake. Awesome. Metallica was like, well, we're so sorry. Here's a free concert 6 months later that you get to come see us again. What? If you had tickets for this show, you get to go see us again.
Are you kidding?
At the Jexa, whatever it was, Smirnoff at the time.
Yeah.
So Corrosions of Conformity, Metallica. So
and I
forgot
Corrosion,
who else.
So.
Yeah, so I got 2 concerts for the price of one. Got to see Korn and everybody sing for Metallica. Got these seat cushions flying. I don't know if a memory will ever top that.
So you were how old in 2000? Like 18, 19?
Yeah, about 17, 18. Yeah. And it was awesome. I have one other like favorite memory.
Go, please.
Okay.
We want to trade?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I've got a few, but the one that stands out is, and it's metal-ish, Guns N' Roses.
Okay.
1991, St. Louis, which is actually a legendary story, which is, it's Skid Row and Guns N' Roses.
Okay.
Skid Row opens. They put on a great set. Guns N' Roses comes out. Hour into their set, Axl gets mad at a guy taking pictures of him in the crowd, which now sounds absolutely idiotic, right, with everybody with their cell phones. But at the time, cameraman jumps in the crowd, hour into the show, gets in a fight, jumps back on the stage. I'm going home.
Oh, and like just bails.
Leaves.
I think I've heard about
20,000 people in the.
So you were there.
I was there. I was on the lawn. Full-blown riot.
Had to be, yeah.
Full like
because Guns N' Roses was one of the biggest.
This is
bands in the
91
world at that time.
So this is post Appetite.
Okay.
Right as Use Your Illusions 1 and 2 are coming out. Like, and everybody is giddy that these albums are coming out, including me, my 19-year-old self. You're talking about 2000 being that age. 91, I'm 19 years old. Place comes off its hinges. This is in St. Louis, very similar to Jexa, same setup, 18,000 seat venue. This was if I'm not mistaken, the second or third show that had been at that venue in St. Louis. People tore the screens down. They tore the stage apart.
Yeah.
Me and my buddy are walking out of that concert, and there's a guy with a rug rolled up on his shoulder. And we're 19, and we're like, man, what is that? And he's like, oh, it's a GNR logo from the stage.
No kidding.
Like, it was pure, unadulterated mayhem.
Yeah, let's just literally rip everything off that's not like bolted to the wall.
I mean, the seats in like the front section, people had rocketed them out and were throwing them on stage. Like, it was one of those, and like my 19-year-old self, we're on the lawn, me and my buddy, and it starts out as like, wow, this is really like, wow.
Yeah.
To let's get out of here because this is terrifying.
Yeah.
Like this is not gonna end well. So that was like my number one that everybody, if you tell anybody like, yeah, I was at the GNR St. Louis show, I was like, no way. So that was
that's pretty cool.
That's one of my
weren't
crazy
you also
stories.
Didn't you also saw Tool very early on in their before they were even a big band, right?
It was actually I think it actually might have it was 92. Tool opening up for Rollins Band in a really small club in St. Louis. It seated about 1,500 people. Rollins is a headliner. I'm there for Rollins.
Yep.
This little band comes out, dude with his shirt off, tattoo of a spine on his spine, does his show. I'm from Me to You from him. The pit is insane. And I'm like, who are these guys? Go out the next day and buy it.
Yeah, that's what I remember you going. I remember even like last time watching the first episode back, you're like, gotta buy the album.
Next day.
Gotta buy the album. Yeah.
Next day.
That's so cool. The only other concert that compares to that Metallica experience was,
which is like the coolest thing I've ever
it was awesome. The fact that I happened to be there.
Crazy.
Family Values Tour, Korn again, Limp Bizkit, Dr. Dre, and I want to say there was one other band. I don't know if it was Power Man or who else was in
Probably somewhere in that that
Power
vein.
Man 5000 in that vein. But it was like the one reason is my dad brought me to that concert with some buddies, so he was our chaperone.
Your dad's like your metal mentor.
Yeah, he was
It's
my
so
metal
cool.
mentor.
So cool.
So I'm pretty sure we were like 14
And your mom's
or 15.
listening to Prong.
She's listening. That's like the only band that I can recall.
still,
like,
even
Prong,
though,
dude. Because Prong is niche too. Like that's not a big band by
massively
any means.
niche.
Yeah. But
Yes.
look, that song has 20 million listens on Spotify. So it's not like they're.
But that's 20 million since 1990.
So yeah, for 30 years ago.
Just FYI.
But that Family Values tour, one, like I was 14, 15. One of my first concerts. My dad's chaperoning me and some buddies.
That's a gateway drug show.
Yeah,
like
we're
you
listening
get to see the net widen.
the Korn, you know, that they're playing Clown and Ball Tongue and Blind, and I'm singing the F word on occasion to some songs with my dad next to me and going like, can I do this? I don't know if he's going to get
He's
mad
like,
at
it's
me.
cool, man. We're in the show.
Yeah, and then they, you know, Limp Bizkit was in their heyday. Dr. Dre was like kind of cool that it was like this mixture to try to like pull in different crowds.
Yeah.
Huge venue.
That's awesome.
I remember like Fred Durst walking off stage and going down one of the aisles and singing one of the songs and saying "Get the F up" like during a song. And everybody's like, yeah. It was like peak new metal, right? It was the pinnacle of new metal.
And I love new metal. So I
got to see the Family Values tour, which I don't know, maybe they'll do it again one day.
It was a few years though.
Yeah.
They had a good 5-6 year run.
Yeah, but it was awesome, and that was a highlight just because you know that formative years of heavy metal, and my dad's there to witness
I mean, how
it. So
killer is that?
it was cool. It
Well,
was
and
really
actually,
cool.
and I think I told it the last time we did the pod on the Korn thing where I saw Korn open up for Megadeth. Didn't know who Korn was. This was 95.
Okay.
Their first album had just come out. I didn't even know who they were. And they open up with Blind. So the lights go out. And I'm like, who? Like me and my buddy are there. I'm like, who is this?
Yeah.
Are you ready? Whole place comes off its hinges.
Yeah.
I'm watching, and it was at the old Bomb Factory.
Okay.
I watched the whole crowd come off its hinges. I'm like, who is this?
Yeah.
Again, kind of like the Tool story. Next day, buy the first Korn album, and I'm like, hold up. And then Korn, Limp Bizkit, kind of go
Well,
down
that's like
that.
a great comic that nobody knows, and then their first joke, their first punchline
Crushes.
the house just blows up, and they're like, "Who is this person?" And all of a sudden,
Absolutely.
you've got them for the rest of the show. If you
Yes.
open up with Blind,
Oh my gosh.
nobody knows who you are. Any metal fan in the world would hear the opening of Blind and just absolutely go ape, you know what, to it.
I mean, to yell, "Are you ready?" and then
then-
just, and it's all tuned down, so it's
Yeah.
even heavier, and it's not fast.
Yeah, yeah. And then for the they could play 10 minutes or 45 more minutes, and you're hooked for the rest. Of the
I was
concert.
in.
Yeah, yeah.
I was in. So yeah, so that was another one, and then so you've done. So we both done two. So I mean, I've got a million of them.
I know this is like
'Cause I've seen a
we
lot
could
of
do an
shows.
episode solely on
Yeah.
concert memories for one way or another. It doesn't have to be a big concert. It could be a small concert.
Yep.
It could be memorable. It could be disappointing, which I've been to a few disappointing shows
A
as
few of
well.
those.
What's funny is we literally have 10 minutes before we got to get out of here,
Yeah.
and I am also going to pee my pants very soon.
Nice, nice.
But last
we can
question.
Always we can always saw it off.
We can
Yeah.
always cut,
Yeah.
not actually
Not-
saw it
yeah,
off,
that-
but
not
cut off the
physically,
podcast. Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Last question. What band did you come around to really late in their life cycle? So maybe they had their heyday, you weren't into them, you picked them up later on.
Machine Head.
Machine Head, really? Okay.
So that early aughts metal. Now here's where our age difference shows.
Okay.
In 2000, I'm 28. I have a kid. You're 18.
Yeah.
You're going to see Metallica and they're throwing things at Cowboy Stadium.
Yeah.
In 2000, I had a 2-year-old. So like that window of metal and specifically Machine Head and Fear Factory.
Yeah.
Fear Factory, I still have
You
never.
still told me you never got in. That was one of my favorite bands when I was in high school.
Machine Head in like 2016. Like, who's this? Hear Davidian.
Yeah.
Hear, and then start listening to some of their newer stuff, and then start realizing like these guys jam.
Yeah.
Like these guys, and then it's like, how did I not? And I was like, oh yeah, I was like in that phase of like responsible parent, right? Like I just wasn't really exploring bands, so came to them really late. And then I'll throw in another really quick one, Throwdown.
Throwdown. Yeah, that was one that you brought to my attention, right?
Yeah, and they sound like Pantera.
Yeah, they were like in that realm of like under the radar because they were basically a
Sounded
Pantera
too much.
clone,
Sounded
close
too much.
to 'em. Yeah.
But they're one of those. They have, and there's one album that I'm now addicted to that came out in 2005. It's called Vendetta. Album destroys.
Well, there's one band that immediately pops to mind, and they're in the deathcore realm. Thy Art is Murder.
You kind of swear by those guys a little bit.
Dude,
I know
and
you
those
like
guys,
them a lot.
They are super heavy. They are like at the extreme end of heavy. Extreme.
Really good though.
But those guys have been around forever, and they're
Yes.
in that deathcore realm. So if you don't like that genre, cool. But like I found them very late, and I found out these guys have like 5 or 6 albums. I'm like, how did I never get into these guys until now? But I think it's just because I broke through that threshold of like the farthest end of the spectrum and realized there's so many bands that exist on the extreme end that I haven't gotten into.
Well, and we've talked about this too. The older I get, for whatever reason, my tastes get more extreme.
Me too.
So, like, Thy Art is Murder, Upon a Burning Body, Fit for an Autopsy. Like, my threshold used to be Hatebreed.
Yeah.
Now it's over there. And the ultimate come around late band, Knock Loose.
Knock Loose. Yeah, I would give you that. And that's probably a good place to end it because we talked to Knock Loose. Probably talked about him for 20 minutes of a 60-minute
We're gonna
podcast.
have a Knock Loose podcast.
So Knock Loose episode 2 is in the bank and
in the tank.
Just in the interest of time and the fact that we want to have some ammunition for episode 3 of this. We'll go ahead and wrap this up. So Jeff Petty, appreciate you as always. So much fun. I think I have the most fun of any podcast.
Yes. And I will say this. The coolest thing. Shout out to your mom.
Shout out to Brenda Robertson Smith.
The prong loving mama, dude.
Yeah.
That is like the coolest story. So
thanks.
That's
man.
awesome, buddy.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We appreciate you listening. And Jeff, let's do this maybe January, February next year.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Later.